I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel. Section 551.076, to discuss intruder detection security audits. And 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. And the time is 5:31. The board will now convene into open session, and the time is 6:54. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. We wish to emphasize that this is a business meeting of the board, and while those in attendance may disagree about issues, it is our expectation that everyone will conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Disruptions to this meeting by anyone will not be tolerated. In the event any person or group disrupts the meeting, a warning will be given to stop any disruptive behavior. Anyone persisting in disruptive behavior will be removed from the meeting. The board may also call a recess in the event of persistent disruption so that individuals who engage in disruptions can be removed. It is our intent to conduct the meeting in an orderly fashion. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Madison High School. Mr. Wernley.
My pleasure to introduce a couple of great students at Madison for the invocation and the pledge. Joining us today for the invocation will be London Hall. Today she is joined by her supportive, very supportive mother and father, Art and Stephanie Hall, who I know are very proud. Dr. Please stand and recognize. London is an exceptional student and an exceptional person all around. Listing all of her activities and accomplishments would take up the rest of the board meeting, so I'll just touch on a few. London is in the National Honor Society, National Society of Black Engineers, Guide Dogs in Training, Madison FFA, and is a Texas State Convention delegate in the FFA. She's also an accomplished and award-winning ag student, winning numerous accolades, raising cattle, and is on the varsity cattle show team, as well as the varsity golf and track, as she is an incredible athlete as well. All this while maintaining over 100 average in school. And I think someday I'll probably be voting for her for President of the United States. And then also with us today, it's my pleasure to introduce Lynn Wynn, who will be reciting the pledge tonight. Joining Lynn is her wonderful family, her mother, Train Tran, and her father, Gia Wynn, and Lynn's sister, T. Wynn. Dr. Please stand and be recognized. Lynn is an amazing student that excels in everything that she does. She is involved in so many aspects of the school experience, such as PALS and the Interact Club, and competing in HOSA, which is an organization of future health professionals. As busy as she is with all that, she's also our National Honor Society president and a summa cum laude on the A honor roll with 112 grade average. Definitely an asset to Madison and will be an asset to the whole community for a long time to come. If the two students could please go on. We'll start with London.
Good evening. Hi. We come together seeking guidance, wisdom, and equity as we begin this meeting. Let us bring the knowledge we all individually obtain and collaborate positively with each other to yield greatness for us and the institutions in which we supervise. We appreciate each day we are given and the strength and wisdom that we gain from such. Let us keep positivity and optimism in the forefront of our minds and exert our efforts in those areas. May we be challenged with giving our best always, and tasked with striving to create a better world starting in this community. We appreciate you for being here and donating your time to better our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All please rise. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
the
Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. London and Lynn, would you please come forward? We have certificates for you, and we'd like to take a photo with you. Thank you both for being here. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're extremely busy as being students, and so you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go, because it sounds like you might have an animal to take care of or something else. But thank you again for being here. Appreciate it. Item 6, recognition. A, President's remarks on acknowledgement of special calendar events. April 16th to 22nd is Public School Volunteer Week. April 26th is Administrative Professional Day. May 1st is National School Principals Day. May 1st through the 5th is Teacher Appreciation Week. And May 5th is School Lunch Hero Day, honoring cafeteria staff. So if you see these individuals during those times, please thank them for what they do. And I know we announced a few May things because that's before our next board meeting in May. So again, thank you everybody. All right, item B, Roosevelt Cyber Patriot Team National Competition, 3rd place, Colonel LaChance.
Madam President, members of the board, microexecutive staff, and guests, it is a great day to be in NAISD. It's even a better day to be a Rough Rider from Roosevelt, and I imagine it has to be awesome to be a parent of those Rough Riders as well. I welcome all parents here as well. So now I'm pleased to bring before you the Roosevelt Cyber Patriot Team, the Rough Riders. I want to recognize them for all their accomplishments throughout the year, because they are quite impressive. Cyber Patriot is a national youth cyber defense competition sponsored by the Air Force Association. The competition is broken down into 2 divisions. It has an open division, or as its name implies, anyone who meets the age eligibility requirements can apply. And then there's a specific JROTC division where JROTCs from all the services can compete, and that's where all of our schools compete. The competition begins in the fall with 2 rounds, then proceeds to a state round, a regional round, and finally to a national round. All the teams get to participate up to the state round, but after that, well, the regionals get a little tougher, and of course, nationals that much tougher. Come on in, ladies. So how did our rough riding techno wizards do? They took 1st place. Just relax. They took 1st place. face them. Go ahead, face them.
Left face.
So you tell cadets to relax and you just
They-
don't do it.
They just can't.
Kids, you can't tell them anything. So these techno wizards, they took first place among all JROTC programs in the state of Texas, making them the Texas state champions. They sailed through the semifinal round into the national round as the highest scoring Army JROTC team. They don't hand out their title, but when you have the highest score in the service, it sounds to me like you are the Army JROTC national champion. They then went on to the national round, which is a knife fight among all of the JROTC's top and best. And there they finished first in the Cisco challenge, one of the challenges, very hard to do, and third place overall of all JROTCs worldwide. That's over 3,000 programs worldwide. And if that were not enough, this is the 5th year in a row that the Rough Riders have qualified for the Nationals, and the 4th time in those 5 years that they finished in the top 3. Oh. Really, that is only possible with the support of the principal, the organization, assets like ICSI, and all of those things that you provide us, and we appreciate that. We're extremely proud of our Rough Riders, and it's with great pleasure that we now recognize them. The team commander is Cadet Captain Shema Kilich.
I don't think they're gonna move.
You're allowed to smile. Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Isabel Sanchez. Cadet Captain Andrea Fabian Navarro. And Cadet First Sergeant Tina Say. One member of the team could not be here tonight. That's Cadet Private Bryson Walker. I don't know if he's watching online, but he is also part of the team, and congratulations. I also want to recognize the coach, Master Sergeant Johnson from Roosevelt High School. And while their mentor could not be here, the Jedi warrior himself, Josh Beck, is the coach, is the mentor for this team. Please, let's hear it for the Roosevelt Cyber Patriot team. Okay, attention. I said attention. Fall out. Now go there. Form a nice little semicircle and smile.
Y'all can come up. Y'all can come up. Absolutely. Yes, yes.
Please.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah. Item 7, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student, 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. If you signed up to speak on a specific agenda item, you will be called up when the board reaches that item. Please remember that this is a business meeting of the board. Any person or group engaging in outbursts of any kind causing a disruption to the meeting will be warned, and if they persist, will be removed from the meeting. This is to ensure that all speakers have an opportunity to make comments without interruption and that the board members are able to pay full attention to speakers without any distractions. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the Superintendent's Office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Ms. Huey.
Number 2.
My name is Gloria Jackson, and my child attends Reagan High School. We would like to share our experience with the district concerning the bully protocol and the grievance process. There is a lack of uniform, comprehensive knowledge on both the topic of bullying and the protocol used to address bullying on campus, ranging from on-site administrators to district executives. The principal at Reagan did not act when we called him to relay the urgency of moving our daughter to another lunch because of bullying. We conveyed our daughter felt threatened and needed to be moved. However, the principal refused to act until he returned from a trip. In the meantime, the school counselor spoke with our daughter and assessed the situation. He deemed it necessary to move our daughter to a safe environment, but was not allowed to act on her behalf until his boss returned. It is Reagan practice to leave students in an unsafe environment. It is Reagan practice to fail to respond in a timely fashion. For instance, we spoke to our principal, school counselor, and district executive director about what was happening to our daughter, and not one of these administrators moved into action when we relayed the urgency of the matter. The executive director informed us that we needed to fill out an online form reporting bullying in order to have an administrator respond. It took the district 8 business days to respond and launch a bully investigation. We had to educate the responding assistant principal on the definition of social bullying and help her determine she was using the wrong form. The assistant principal was not aware of the bully checklist used by the district. It was granted by the assistant superintendent to launch a second investigation to carry out a proper protocol. We are still in the process of resolving this bully investigation. It has taken almost 4 months to address, and we still do not have resolution due to the district's lack of knowledge and training. There has been almost no mediation or intervention to assure the safety of my daughter. We had to do all the research and figure out how to help my daughter deal with the bullying. Even though we spoke to the principal, the assistant principal, the executive director, and the assistant superintendent, no uniform information regarding the bully protocol or mediating help, nor the existence of a stand counselor was ever mentioned. The safety of our children is of utmost importance. The lack of training is a great concern since there has been a teenage suicide at Reagan in February 2020. We implore the board to create uniform training to address the bully protocol, to make available mediating help freely and promptly to students and parents, as well as to inform administrators, parents, and students about the role of the stand counselor. Thank you.
Ms. Rona, that was number 3, and I called number 2, so how do we? Do we go back? Okay. All right, I had called number 2, and that was number 3. Is number 2 here to speak also?
Yes. We kind of flipped it. So, yeah. Okay. Good evening, board. My name is Greg Jackson. I also happen to have the same child at Reagan High School that you just heard my wife speak about. So I'm going to continue on so we can adhere to the 3-minute rule. We have experienced some very interesting things at Ronald Reagan High School, including a lack of ethical conduct from administrators. The principal took our daughter into his office to discuss bullying and possible change in her schedule. However, during this
Can I interrupt you for just a minute?
Sure.
Do you have a pending grievance?
No.
You do not?
No.
Okay.
And at that time, it was quite a difficult thing for my daughter to do, to go talk to him. At the end of the conversation, she was rather broken, and he hugged my daughter. The incident instigated a bunch of different conversations with a bunch of different people, and ultimately, we didn't really feel like we were getting a whole lot of help from administration or executive members within NEISD. We really felt like a lot of information was withheld. We requested camera footage through the open records request on your website. We were told multiple times that cameras weren't available. It turns out there were quite a few that were available. So we really feel like, per the Attorney General of the state of Texas, a lot of the laws were violated for us not being able to receive what we were actually requesting. And come to find out, there's actually there's no district policy prohibiting administrators from hugging our children. So we implore the board to look at the policy to protect our children from any unwanted bodily touching, and to train administrators extensively and thoroughly on ethical standards and behavior concerning students. We've also experienced just a lack of candor pertaining to the entire grievance process. We had no idea what a grievance meant. We had no idea how to file a grievance. So there's a lack of that. So we tried to talk to people and try and figure it out, talk to the administration of the school, come down here to this building and talk to the administration here within NEISD. So we met with quite a few administrators and a lot of executives along the way, all the way up to the superintendent, as well as the board member here, the president of the board, trying to figure out like what to do, how to deal with this issue. And nowhere in that process were we told there was even a grievance process available. We had no idea. So we just really implore the board to create a policy that makes the grievance process clear to parents as they try and work with administration or the district, because we had no idea we even had the right to file a grievance. We no clue at all. So that's all I have. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6? No, that's an agenda item.
My name is Karen Lenartz. Good evening, President Grona, School Board, and executive staff. The plan to remove current family specialists from non-title school campuses and go with the model of one family specialist per cluster has been brought to my attention. The reason I'm bringing this up is I'd hope for consideration when you consider the budget for the next year. In recent years, family specialists have become a vital part of each campus. These specialists work closely with families, students, and staff. They're an integral part of working with at-risk students, emerging bilingual students, and they work with families teaching English classes and other parenting classes. They identify students who have food insecurities, work issues, and many other issues that keep them from attending school. Many students come to our schools from other countries, speak little to no English. Some families cannot even navigate the paperwork to enter the school and rely on that family specialist for help. Family specialists help support families and guide them to resources to help them to assimilate into our area. Without the individual family specialist on each campus, the cluster family specialist will be tasked with visiting 4 to 6 schools in 1 week, doing their best to provide service to students and families. If students require something when the specialist is not available, they will have to rely on already overtaxed counselors. By the way, Churchill will be losing 2 counselors next year, and that would be more taxing for them. I worked in the Churchill food pantry for over 4 years and saw firsthand how important the family specialist was. The first year I was there, we did not have a family specialist, and I relied on a stand counselor to help identify students with families with food insecurities so we could help them out. Our stand counselor worked her full day, often helping me on weekends, and spending her evenings visiting at-risk students well into the evening, leaving little time to help with students' mental health, which was what her job should have been. Again, taking the family specialist away from the family specialist away will leave another hole for our most at-risk students to fall through. I'm asking the board and executive staff to review the budget for future school years and add this important resource to the budget.
Number 9?
Grace and peace be upon you from God our Father and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. My name is Nathan Morgan. God said, "You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die." In other words, if you pursue the knowledge of evil, you will murder your own soul. Similarly, if you stick your head in a trash can, all you can see is garbage. Leave it there long enough, and you'll come to think the whole world is trash. I have suffered the depraved environment in divorce court, where dishonesty abounds and wild, contrived tales are sworn and entered into the public record as true, where articulate, highly paid legal mouthpieces assault the court in desperate attempts to convince anyone within earshot that the custodial parent is abjectly unfit to breathe the same air as his own child. All the while, the mouths of the unsuspecting and defenseless accused are agape in utter astonishment, disbelief, and disgust. Adding insult to injury, zealous political pundits would seize such an opportunity to defame a related, good and worthy, duly elected official, casting the worst possible light to undermine an opponent who has the strength of character to stop the immorality of feeding the children of our society with the knowledge of evil. As for me and my house, I serve the Lord, and say, get your heads out of the trash can. Thank you.
Number 10, you just wrote agenda. What specifically is that addressing?
The same agenda that was just discussed.
Okay, then we'll call you that agenda item. Number 12, same thing, you just said matters from the floor. Number 12? Is that an agenda item or an open item that's not on the agenda? Open item. An open item? Okay.
It's actually health ed. Is that open item? Health ed. Okay.
Is it an agenda item or?
No, health ed. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's not on the agenda. Okay.
All right. Good evening. My name is Deanna Fensel. I recently attended a SHAC meeting and wanted to let you know how impressed I was. The committee worked well together and made all the information easy to follow and understand. I also wanted to add that even though the presentation was excellent, I personally feel that the health ed should have its status changed from mandatory subject required for graduation and changed to an elective optional status. The reason I say this is because of all the varying opinion and beliefs held by all different families. It just makes sense to stop requiring this subject for kids to graduate. Texas is a state that actually gives the school board the power to do this. Positives to making health ed an optional elective frees up money from the district and time for the SHAC to focus on other areas of concern. This also gives families choice. Giving families in the district choice when it comes to making decisions for their children's well-being is always the answer. We definitely saw how not giving families choice during COVID backfired. People like me pulling their kids out of public schools, that's what happened. And then the Cochrane study that was just recently released confirming scientifically based studies on what mask optional families were fighting for, choice. I would very much like to see the board revisit the health ed subject mandatory requirement. I'm not saying that I want it to go away. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I just don't feel it should be required to graduate. Finally, I understand that budget season is near, and I haven't seen any announcements on social media or anywhere else addressing issues like maybe more security on campuses, for example. I feel the district needs to use this time to meet with teachers and parents to get some fresh ideas. And I'd rather much see that than the obvious targeting of fellow board members all over social media. And just let me say, I do support full investigations on all allegations, but I find that what's going on right now is desperate and zero empathy for the family on all ends. This is definitely a sign of the times and reinforces that good old change is good slogan, meaning elections. I end by urging parents and teachers to get to know your trustee. They are people just like you and me, and I think we need to build a stronger bridge in order to be successful. Thank you.
And then number 16, you wrote down 2 agenda items. Did you have 2 subjects you were speaking on? Oh, sorry, there you are, I'm sorry. Okay, how do we do that? Do we do 3 for each or what? Okay.
Hi. So I'm Paula Hilliard, and I just wanted to actually echo that comment about the shack. That was excellent, the way they came together with very diverse viewpoints and were able to present something. I thought it was a good example to follow for everybody. I really appreciate the fact that I got to go, but there was a lot of parents that didn't even know there was a shack meeting going on. We have another one coming up, and it's not been really advertised. And so I would just say if we want parent engagement, then we need to actually invite them to have a seat at the table. And then I also agree with that other comment, which is there should be outreach from each of you that's allowed by the district. I mean, I know that there's efforts. People want to talk to teachers because budget season's coming up, and I've heard so many people are leaving, but why? We love them. We want to keep them. What can we do? Are we listening to them? So I want to make sure that we can hear unfiltered information, and there has to be a way to do that where they feel safe. And then I guess I just wanted to say there are some positive ideas that we have, parents have, and would love to bring them forward as policies or as just ideas, innovative ideas. We have to keep innovating. We have to compete with other options out there. And so in order to keep our public schools healthy, let's put a contest out for like the next great policy or the next great idea or the next whatever it might be. And the one I presented to SHAC and never even got forwarded to the group last year was let's teach people about vitamin D because you don't have to be wealthy to be healthy. Vitamin D has a 98% correlation with respiratory illnesses and healing from them. People who had good vitamin D levels didn't die of COVID, and I presented that at the city council, and it was just stay inside, no sun. Why? Why are we doing that? So let's look at outside for everybody, middle school, high school, extra recess. So for elementary, but let's get our teachers outside. Let's get some sunshine. We have beautiful sunshine in Texas, but let's educate people on the simplicity of something that God gave us with the sunshine. And let's go. That's just so easy. It costs us nothing, but we are equipping children and the teachers with knowledge to last them the rest of their life. Very simple. Again, costs us nothing, but we have to be open to these ideas, and there's just no place to go. There's just no place to go. So that's just something to think about. Anyway, I have about a million other different ideas like that, but that's all. Just wanted to say thank you.
And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Item 8, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. A, athletic coordinator, head football coach, Legacy of Educational Excellence High School. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 probationary contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 3, possible action to submit complaint to SBEC for job abandonment by Chapter 21 contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 9, presentations. A, intruder detection audit by Texas School Safety Center. Dr. Micah.
Thank you, Madam. I think this is on. Thank you, Madam President. As discussed in executive session, since the last time the board met, we had 12 audits Of those 12, 11 were clean with no findings. As I shared with you back there, the one finding that was discovered by the auditor, it was fixed within about 2 minutes of finding it.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Item B, dental premium refund, Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, it's just information that we're bringing to you. We're going to be giving a dental refund, premium refund, 2 months worth. We've done it in the past. We did it in 2017 and 2019. The fund has excess revenues, so we want to be able to give back to people who participate in our dental program.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions about that? Item C, teacher incentive allotment local designation plan, Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'd like to introduce Shiloh Witten, and helping her will be Gina Graham to take over this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Good evening. As Mr. Jimenez said, I'd like to acknowledge Gina Graham. She is our Director of Recruitment and Retention, and she has also been serving as our lead person, our district facilitator for the teacher incentive allotment. So she's been key in the planning and development of the local designation plan that we are presenting to you this evening. Over the last several years, during budget study sessions, we've presented to you a compensation plan that does refer to the teacher incentive allotment. It was to acknowledge payment to teachers that have come to us from other districts and have earned a teacher designation under TIA or have held a national board certification and have been designated as recognized. What we are excited to do tonight is to present to you our own local designation plan where we can allow an opportunity for our own teachers to earn a designation. This is a robust system, and it has a lot of information that we have been doing over the past year. So we've taken that and tried to condense it and present to you the highlights and the key components. So before we begin, we would like to share with you a brief video that was published by TEA for you in the audience, just to give you an overview of the teacher incentive allotment. And then within our presentation, we're going to go through that in further detail and really outline for you our process of developing our own local designation plan.
The teacher incentive allotment was established by House Bill 3 during the 86th legislature and is designed to give Texas teachers access to a six-figure salary. The program's goal is to reward, retain, and recruit effective teachers while promoting equitable distribution of these teachers. Teachers are eligible to generate allotment funds for their district based on their performance. Participating districts can designate a teacher as recognized, exemplary, or master based on teacher observation, student growth, or other factors determined by the district. Teachers can also reach recognized status by obtaining a national board certification. Once a designation is achieved, it lasts for 5 years or until their national board certification expires. Annual funding allotments are based on designations, rural status of the campus, and level of student economic need. A district will receive a TIA allotment between $3,000 and $32,000 for each employed designated teacher. Higher funding is generated for rural and high-needs campuses. A teacher's designation will move with them if they decide to work in another district. If the teacher meets eligibility requirements at their new district, then the funds generated will be awarded to the new district during the next year's allotment cycle. Districts who want to be approved for a local teacher designation system will need to develop and implement a system based on teacher observation and student growth measures. The Texas Education Agency approves district systems based on their validity and reliability. Approval of a local designation system is a two-step process over the course of 3 school years. The district should develop their system through stakeholder engagement, solidifying the components of their system, and aligning their system to performance standards. When the district has solidified their system, they will then submit their system application to TEA for review. This is known as Step 1 of the approval process. Upon approval of their application, they will begin their data capture year. This year represents the first year districts are implementing their system and capturing the teacher observation and student growth data. This year also represents a district's cohort letter. For example, the first data capture year was 2018 to 2019 and represents cohort A. After capturing their data in the data capture year, in the following school year, the district will complete Step 2 of the approval process by submitting data from the previous school year along with their proposed designations to Texas Tech University for data validation. TEA will then review the outcomes of the data validation and the application to determine final approval. If approved, the district will be approved to issue designations. Designated teachers who are employed by the district and meet eligibility requirements will generate an allotment for their district. 90% of the funds generated must be used for compensation of teachers employed at the campus where the designated teacher works. Up to 10% of funds can be used for costs associated with supporting a local designation system or to support teachers in obtaining designations.
So as noted in the video, the passage of this teacher incentive allotment through House Bill 3 during the 86th legislative session was to help elevate the teaching profession and provide districts an opportunity to create a strategic compensation plan to recruit, reward, and retain our teachers, which which really ties perfectly with our balanced district scorecard. So the focus here that we highlight is priority 2, staff, and objective 2.1, which really again summarizes the ability to create a competitive salary and benefits for our teachers and to recruit and retain them. Want to give you an overview of the teacher incentive allotment over the last 3 years and how this has really expanded across the state. So if you look at the first 2 columns, you'll see that we have districts that have participated in cohorts A through D. That totals 173 districts for a total of 26% of our students represented across the state of Texas that have a fully implemented plan. And then we have 204 that are in cohort E that have submitted their application, and they will be informed of their full approval in April of 2024. And the districts like Northeast are in cohort F, where we have planned to submit our application in April, and then we would get information about whether we are approved in 2024. So here, I know on your screens you might have a better view, but for our audience, what we have presented here is really a map illustrating what was shown in the previous slide as far as the numbers to show the increase just between cohorts C and D. You can see just by the color green how that has increased over that time frame, which really for us emphasizes the reason for us to pursue this initiative, because we want to remain competitive, not only throughout the state of Texas, but as we go further, just in Region 20. So here on the slide for you, I know in your view, it might be easier to see that there's a gray shadow that's a little darker that highlights Region 20. And within Region 20, there are 58 school systems. Of those 58 school systems, there are 36 that have either fully funded systems or have systems that have been approved. So we want to be, again, amongst those districts that are pursuing this opportunity to remain competitive with our local districts as well. So within the presentation, it was mentioned the 3 different designation levels. So I just want to take a moment to reiterate that. So currently there are 3 levels of designations with allotments. Those 3 levels are recognized, exemplary, and master, and those are based on a campus's rural status or a campus's socioeconomic need. Northeast is not a rural district, so the one factor that would apply to us is our socioeconomic needs of our students at each campus. And then those amounts that you see at the bottom would be for each of those different designations. For this year, just to give you an idea of the amounts that our teachers, if they do hold a designation, would receive if they were in one of those 3 levels, range from $3,212 to $28,947. Now, those amounts will change each year, again, based on the factor of our socioeconomic status at our campuses. As we continue to look at the district balance scorecard, we like to stress how this also ties into Objective 2.2, where TIA provides our teachers an opportunity to have resources, tools, and training to develop professionally within TIA. We see that as something that we can do when we look at the different pathways. And those 2 pathways to earn designation, first, are National Board Certification that I mentioned earlier. That's a fairly automatic way that an individual could pursue certification to earn a current designation of recognized. Under Governor Abbott's Teacher Task Force vacancy, the Teacher Vacancy Task Force, that has been one of the items that they stressed within their recommendations. So of the 3 different areas of focus, one of those themes has been the teacher incentive allotment. So we are seeing different bills that are being presented to look at increasing the level or expanding the level for teachers who earn national board certification to be not just recognized, but perhaps exemplary or master, because that is one of the ways that, again, a teacher can earn this. And national board certification is a highly recognized way in which teachers professionally can grow, and it is all to support students and staff and campuses. The other is our local optional teacher designation system that we're going to talk about in further depth shortly. So with national board certification, these are the 3 different ways that we would like to be able to support our teachers. The first is we are partnering with Region 20 to host a cohort of teachers. We have 9 slots that we are working with them to have available that would be funded through a grant. And then the second would be establishing our own cohort of teachers who have an interest in pursuing national board certification. What we would do to identify those teachers is, first communicate that opportunity out through information, then do an interest survey, and then do interviews to identify those teachers that would be in one of these 2 cohorts. The other option is individuals can pursue national board certification on their own. We've presented to you that in prior years, as mentioned in our compensation plan, we have had employees that have had national board certification, and we are aware of 1 individual that is currently pursuing that opportunity. And the good thing with teacher incentive allotment is for individuals that are in the second and third option, once they go through that, because it is a 2-year commitment, and can cost them for their initial certification a little over $2,400. There is a way that if they are successful, they can actually seek reimbursement, and those are separate funds identified by TEA. So we would support them in those efforts to make sure they know of that opportunity. So pathway 2, which will be the focus of our presentation this evening, will be the local designation system. So here we just wanted to present the 2 different roles. One, the district role that we have in developing and implementing our system, and then the state's role in improving the system based on our validity and reliability. It's a 2-step process. It was highlighted within the video, but just to expand upon that a little further, we have the step 1, which is the system review, where we submit our application to TEA. And then step 2 is the data review, which is Texas Tech would review the evidence we submit to ensure that our data is, again, valid and reliable. TA partners with the Texas Tech University, and they work with all districts in reviewing their data. Here is the application and approval process, really at a high level. As you can see here, it spans over a 3-year period, and this really is the same timeline for any cohort that we look at. So this right now illustrates dates for us as part of cohort F. You'll see here that in year 1, where we would apply now for the TIA, then in year 3, which is 24-25, would be when we would actually get full approval and be able to designate and compensate our teachers. So 2 years between the time that you submit your application and actually can designate and compensate your teachers. And that's just highlighting again where we are in that process over a 3-year time frame. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ms. Graham. She's really now going to drill into the pre-application in year 1 and what that has looked like for us as a district.
Good evening. Although this slide shows that we began this journey in July of 2022, that is not indeed the case. We really began our journey back in the 1920 school year when we really started unpacking all that TIA has to offer to teachers. COVID happened, and as part of COVID, the application process has been streamlined, it has been revised, it has been modified. And so in July of 2022, we stepped back into TIA, re-educating ourselves through all of the resources, webinars, district meetings, everything that is available now to become part of Cohort F. So in August, based on all of that information, we put together a planning committee. We started seeing what was next for us. And in September, we identified our key stakeholders. We knew we were ready to move forward, and we knew we needed to get everyone involved. So we started with a steering committee. Each board member had the opportunity to nominate a community member because we wanted to have community members involved. We also have administrators and teachers representing all of our high school clusters of schools. And we also have central office personnel who are really involved with the key departments that will be part of TIA. So the steering committee embodies our district at a very high level. The steering committee set the mission and the vision for TIA, kind of put the border pieces of the puzzle together, and then turned the work over to the design teams. And the design teams are kind of the nuts and bolts people, based on the information in the TIA guidebook, again, coupled with the steering committee's guidelines. We got down to work, and so you'll see the number of departments and personnel that were involved in really fleshing it out and making this something that could be a reality for our teachers. Whoops, I'm sorry, double-clicked there. So curriculum instruction, performance and planning, human resources, professional learning, our budget and payroll folks, our legal department, and our school administration. Everyone has come together and worked toward the best possible plan that we can put forward to represent the best of our teachers. We discovered that we also needed some subcommittees or some working teams. So the steering committee, again, provided the mission and the vision. The design teams really got down to work, but then there were just kind of some nitty-gritty things, some more granular pieces. And we needed to reach out to individual small working teams. We partnered with our management information services for PEIMS updates. We worked with groups of teachers looking at different or a variety of student growth measures that are available to us. So these subcommittees and these working teams kind of come and go. They're a much more flexible and fluid piece of the TIA committee. They kind of provide the answers when needed, kind of at the moment that they are needed. And then my favorite, the TIA campus ambassadors. So there is a volunteer from each of our campuses. So it's a small cohort of around 70 plus individuals. When you get them all in one room, we are a loud, noisy family, and it's a lot of fun having them there. They represent the boots on the ground. They share the ground truth. They are not a decision-making committee. They're an information-sharing committee, but it's a two-way communication. We share the updates that have been shared with campus administrators, as well as meetings like this evening, our steering committee meetings, and then they share with us what they're hearing, often in the teacher's lounge or in the hallway. Because we are joining cohort F, many of our teachers have friends, colleagues, neighbors, loved ones who may have been participating in a previous cohort. So there's a little bit of that, well, I know someone who, ... And so our ambassadors are critically important in making sure that we are staying in touch with teachers. As a matter of fact, we will have our next meeting tomorrow evening. Following this evening, we will share this presentation with them. One of our campuses, as a matter of fact, I received an email just before walking in here. The campus ambassador will not be able to attend and has already secured a replacement, another teacher on campus. They take it that seriously. So it's one of the best pieces that has come out of this entire journey. In October, November, and December, we got down to business, and we met with our campus administrators, our steering committee met, our design teams met, and we really started putting the pieces together. We put paper and pencil together. We put the right thinkers in the right room at the right time. We asked some tough questions, and we started getting some really good answers, and we knew that we were on the right track. We knew we had a lot of work ahead of us, so we had to balance two really important pieces here, that district level input and the campus level input. And I want to stress the importance of balance because no one outweighed the other. This is where we had to bring people together in the same room. We discovered in-person works well. Zoom is always an option, but it's great to get people in the same room and to just talk through, again, some of the details that are involved in knowing systems, knowing time, resources, personnel, capacity, coupled with the wants and the desires of teachers at that campus level. So moving forward, we worked very closely with our teachers to form the plan. And you'll notice in January, we launched our first video and teacher survey. This is something that is unique. It's not required. It's something that we chose to do because we wanted to hear from our teachers their feelings and their findings about TIA. So in January, we put together was about a 10-minute video. It began with the portion that you saw at the beginning of this meeting, coupled with a piece that was tailored to Northeast, and then our first teacher survey where we asked for their input on the required components of the TIA plan. In February, we shared the findings with both design teams, subcommittees, our administrators, and our steering committee. So linking this, aligning this with our balanced scorecard, you'll notice 2.3, we're going to have regular opportunities for our teachers to provide input with regard to decisions and matters that impact job satisfaction and retention. And those are the two of the main points of TIA, is that we want to recruit, retain, and reward teachers. So it just makes sense to reach out and ask for their input. So with the first survey, we focused on the weight of required components. TIA tells us there are required components. However, we get to decide as part of our local designation system how much weight is given to each. There are guidelines for that, but we get to ask. We also get to ask our teachers, and we get to decide as part of our designation system, will we include any optional components? And then lastly, what will our spending plan look like? T-TESS is our measure of teacher effectiveness. It is our appraisal tool. There are 4 domains of T-TESS. 2 are required. So domain 1, planning, and domain 4, professional roles and responsibilities, are not required. However, you'll notice under optional components, we did include them for teachers to provide input. Would you like to have these 2 included as part of our designation plan? Domain 2, instruction, and domain 3, classroom environment, are required. So domains 1 and 4 could be optional if chosen. Domains 2 and 3 are required. Student growth, another required component. And then we have the option of how we're going to disperse allotment funding. And remember, 90% goes to the campus where the designated teacher works. 10% can be reserved by the district. So when we surveyed the teachers, we got some great results. First and foremost, they decided to go with a 60-40 weight, 60% T-TESS. So that is looking again at domains 2 and 3, instruction and classroom environment, with 40% student growth. Notice that a large number of our teachers chose at this time to include no additional factors. And I think it's important to note that even with the additional factors, we are focusing on only data that is already being collected. T-TESS domains 1 through 4 will be appraised. That is part of the appraisal rubric. There is nothing new added there. Student growth is something that we monitor year after year. So again, no additional work is being required of teachers. We just needed to ask our teachers what weight they would like to assign to each of those required components, and if at this time they would like to choose to include the additional components, which would be domain 1, domain 4, and the other option that was included was teacher attendance. And you'll see that over 64% at this time said no additional components would be added. This was the most important, or one of the most, touching pieces of our entire survey. Notice that over 75% of our teachers have elected to share a portion of the allotment funding with those that are considered non-eligible. And notice that this is very specific in the wording. These are people who are working in classrooms. They are student-facing, instructionally based. That is the wording from the guidebook. Student-facing, instructionally based. And these are our paraprofessionals, our instructional aides, who are not considered a teacher, however, are quite often fulfilling a teaching role. And the teachers recognize this and want to partner with these individuals. Over 75%, when given the choice, said yes, they were willing to share a portion of their allotment funding. So it will look like this. Of that 90%, 80% will be paid in a one-time lump sum fee to the designated teacher, with 10% being reserved to be shared with those who would not qualify otherwise. That is pretty awesome. And again, instructional aides, paraprofessionals, classroom inclusion support teachers, those that would not otherwise be able to share in the allotment funding. The other 10% will be reserved by the district to cover the costs of sustaining this program. Okay, we got down to work in March and April. You can tell this is where we moved from from conceptual to some very procedural components of this plan. You'll also notice in March, we were tasked with another video and another teacher survey. I want to stress the importance that our leadership has placed on seeking teacher voice. This was something that we were directed. We were asked to make sure that our teachers had a chance to weigh in and provide feedback on the proposed rollout or phase-in plan. So every component that is being moved forward in our TIA plan has been put to teachers seeking their input. Notice for year one, we are focusing on areas that are currently using NWEA MAP as their assessment piece. We've identified this as developed because this has been in place for over 3 years. So MAP assessment and MAP data is familiar to our teachers. They're familiar with the ways in which the assessment is given to students, the procedures that are in place, and the understanding or the interpretation of the data. The great thing about NWEA MAP, and one of the reasons that it was chosen for a district assessment, is that it is able to adjust to a student's level, including students who are working beyond or in above grade level. So this allows individual student growth to be recorded and individual student growth targets to be set, not based on a grade level expectation, but on an individual student performance expectation.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yes, ma'am.
what is NWEA?
I'm gonna turn to Jennifer because I think I know, but I'm not sure. Ms. Gutierrez?
Academic progress is the name of the assessment.
And-
Measure of academic progress is the name of the assessment.
But the NWEA is
National.
Oh, I'm so grateful that it's not just me. Yes, and I apologize. If you had not asked me, I'd be able to get there. So if you will give me just a minute, Ms. Williams, I promise it's going to come to me.
Sure, no problem.
Now, it's the
Thank
W
you.
that's throwing me off. It's Educational Association. It's the W that is throwing me off. So if you'll give me just... There it is. Northwest. It's a direction. Northeast, you think I could remember Northwest. That's really embarrassing.
Thank you.
Their compass just points the other direction. You'll notice that in year 2, we're looking at expanding NWEA, Northwest, I've got it now, Ms. Williams, to Algebra 2 and English 2. This will extend our reach into high school a little bit further, along with biology. So if you don't mind, if this makes your eyes wonky, close your eyes. I'm going to go back. Okay. We included Algebra 1 and English 1 in year 1 rollout, this first phase in plan, again, because it is in place. Teachers are familiar with the administration. Moving forward, this will extend our reach again, Algebra 2, English 2, and biology. Notice that our special education teachers included in the first phase, the first rollout, are teachers who are working in classrooms that are currently using the MAP assessment with students. So in other words, one student can be identified with 2 teachers, the classroom teacher and if that student is receiving support from a special education teacher. Other special education areas will need to have their measures identified and perhaps even, I'm going to say, kind of strengthened to ensure that validity and reliability piece. That gives us this year to make sure we have that in place. Physical education, one of the options is FitnessGram, and so that is something that we'll look at this year. It's something that's in place, but we need to be able to move it forward. Year 3 and beyond, all of our other core content areas, career and technical education, along with fine arts and electives. So we are looking at a multi-year rollout, beginning with our core content areas first. With our second survey, we asked teachers, do you understand this proposed rollout plan? It made sense to us. We needed to make sure that we were communicating that well and having full transparency with our teachers. So we posed the question in two ways. Do you understand the proposed phase-in plan for year one? Over 95% said yes. Do you understand the multi-year phase-in plan? And over 95% again said yes. All campuses have had the opportunity to share the surveys with teachers through faculty meetings. It could also be shared virtually in a Teams or a Zoom meeting if that was the best avenue for a campus. It was also available via an email link that could be sent to teachers to view on their own time if scheduling conflicts were something that were of a concern. And then all teachers had the link to the survey. We've had responses from all campuses. There is not a campus that has not yet responded. At the time that we created this slide, we were looking at about a 43% response rate. That number has increased since then. We put this together at the end of last week. So we actually have had additional responses since then. Sometimes, especially with the email link, it gives teachers a chance to see it, but then I need to see it and think about it again, and we allow time for that. On some of our surveys, we've actually had over a 100% response rate. Sometimes teachers would have responded once and then again, or if they responded from a default, if they used their phone and their phone defaulted to their personal email and then they responded again using their Northeast email, we counted all responses because we wanted to see if that would in any way skew our results, and as you can see, it has not. We have run true each and every time. So this is where we are now. We are looking at submitting our application in the next week. The date is Monday, the 17th. We'd like to have it all buttoned up by Friday because that'll sure make it easier to sleep Saturday and Sunday. So we're saying Friday, but please know we have until Monday. We will not submit at 11:59, I promise you that, but we will have it in on time. Once we do that, it will trigger a survey from Texas Tech, which will be a teacher buy-in survey, which will look and sound very much like the surveys that we've already shared with our teachers. We were wise to reach out to our teachers in advance, and again, it is not required. Our teachers have been integral in putting together this plan. We will then await feedback and revision suggestions from TEA before receiving our final notification in August that we're moving forward. And from there, we'll move into our data capture year. Let me stress again, we are only capturing data that would already be in our system. We are not in any way adding burden to the teachers. We're not adding anything else to their already very full plates. What we're doing is we're using the data that we're already collecting, again, to reward, retain, and recruit our very best. So how do you know if you're eligible? Well, there are really 4 criteria. You're a classroom teacher. So yes, we've had questions from those that perhaps have chosen a different career path and have elected or are considering stepping out of the classroom, and this is intended to keep you there. So you need to be identified as an 087 teacher. You need to have a full year of teaching service. Now, this is defined in an interesting way. It does allow for 90 days at 100% instruction, or for anyone who may have additional duties, 180 days at 50 to 99% classroom-based instruction. So this allows our coaches who may have split duties to still participate so long as they meet the 50 to 99% of their day spent in an instructional-based teaching situation. Appraisal is a full T-TESS cycle for each eligible teaching assignment. And again, it's that multi-year rollout. So this year, looking at our phase-in plan, our elementary schools will be stepping in first with reading, math, and science. We're including science at the elementary level for any of our campuses that may have departmentalized grade levels. 6 through 8, reading and math, and then again in 9th grade, English 1 and Algebra 1. So our reach is across all levels, with the greatest impact occurring at elementary first. We have developed and are in the process of developing our website. This is something that we would want to do anyway, but it is also a requirement of TIA, making sure teachers have access at any time to what's going on. So this will evolve, it will continue to grow. We are working on our guidebook that will lay out every piece of this process moving forward. And we're looking into the best way to develop a dashboard, a teacher-principal dashboard, where I can click and see the most recent information, and I can look and see my information, my personal information. So we are going to be partnering with quite a few departments to make this a reality for our teachers. We want to make it as easy as possible. And then Ms. Whitten and I are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, Gina, the only thing that I didn't hear mentioned in there is this money is TRS compensable, correct?
It is.
And I think you all need to know that. So for a teacher, this gives them an opportunity to make a six-figure salary as a teacher.
Absolutely.
And once they earn that distinction, it stays with them for 5 years,
5
correct?
years.
And that money stays with them for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge opportunity for teachers because in TRS, it's your high five that you can retire on, right?
Sure.
So this is really giving that teacher an opportunity to really boost up their TRS.
And our steering committee, one of the very first decisions they made, and they made it with little to no discussion, years of service would not be a gatekeeper. So you can be a first or second year teacher and be considered eligible for TIA, meaning that if you're at that very beginning part of your career and you have quite a bit of student debt, this would be a great way to get rid of some of that student debt. You know, if you're in the middle part of your career and you're saving money for college and weddings and all those other things that come up, what an incredible opportunity. Or if you're an empty nester, this is a great way to not only receive that designation, but it's quite likely that some of our designated teachers might consider that little bit longer commute in the morning or the afternoon, work at a campus of greater need determined by socioeconomic status of students, and also receive a greater allotment funding. So it puts in place a more business-like model in the educational system. It allows teachers to have a skill set that is desirable and is portable, and they can seek opportunities as a classroom teacher that just have not been available to them before. There are things that you can do now staying in the classroom that in the past you were often considered, well, do I have to leave the classroom to be able to do these things? And now, through this one program, you can stay in the classroom and reach a very different income level.
Question?
I have a question. There was something in there on one of the slides. It said that our district would be responsible for 10%.
Let me go
Did
back.
I catch that?
Yes, ma'am. Right here.
Do you know what that translates to? Or is that?
Not responsible. We're not paying
No,
that 10%.
we are able to
We
reserve.
can retain 10%.
Oh, I like
of the
it.
teacher incentive.
Okay,
So
good.
when you take a look at this, Ms. Villarreal, when you see the district, what we're saying in that 10% is these are some of the potential things that we would be using that 10% of money for. So to pay for PD, for them to achieve a status, right, cost of assessments, so forth and so on. It's just, that is the piece. But as this showed here, when our teachers were asked, and again, we sat in a room together and I said, this is amazing, because the teachers could have said, no, we're going to keep 90%. But what they said is, no, we want to share this with the other people. And this is why their voice was so important to it, is that's what they needed to make that determination, not us.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
And that is why the National Board Certification is so important to us. That is something that, it's a win-win-win. It's great for teachers, it's really great for students, and it's a real badge for our school district, and it would allow teachers to step into this
Right,
funding.
and anyone can earn it. Any teacher can qualify for it. There's no limit, I guess, or cap to it.
Okay, that was going to be my question. All right, so as many teachers that's qualified in theory could do this. It's not just the 10% of staff or whatever. Anybody that's qualified.
I'm so glad you asked that. So,
That's great.
Mr. Hilliard, if I am a designated teacher and it's $100, when you and I work together and we are both designated teachers, it's not 50 and 50, it's still 100 and 100.
Okay, so every single one that qualifies, and there's no limit on the number of teachers in theory that we could get qualified, not that.
For which piece?
the-
For each level?
Not for each level, but total number, can every teacher that reaches a designation, whichever designation they receive, we could have 50 teachers at a campus or 100. It's not
Yes.
like, there's no cap from.
No, sir.
Okay.
All of them can qualify.
That's great.
So if every teacher in this school district wants to go out and be nationally board certified, they can all get it, and they're all considered recognized on this.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And did I hear that they could be compensated if they actually make it through the process, that we would refund the money, or TEA would refund the
There
money?
is a way to seek reimbursement for that. So it's not paid in advance. So the teacher will incur the expense, but they can seek reimbursement.
Right, and that's what we'll help them with.
Reimbursement through TEA?
Through TEA.
Okay.
Through TEA.
They're from the government, they're here to help.
Ms. Huey.
That's frightening.
And then, on that slide, actually, it talks about classroom inclusion support teachers. Of course, I think we all know what the aides are, but I'm so impressed, and I love that these teachers are sharing this. Is there other support staff? I mean, what about things like librarians or?
They are not considered an 087. They are,
Okay.
and there's a question that was asked by librarians themselves, of course, in that very first survey. Librarians have stepped out of the classroom. We are glad they did. We love our librarians, but they are no longer in 087, and they do work a longer contract. So their contract and their days do look different than the classroom teachers.
Okay, so that would mean things like the family specialists and things like that make all those incredible differences for some of our students. Okay.
Absolutely,
All right.
and that is something that is not a Northeast decision. It is truly the guidelines as spelled out in House Bill 3 that was directed toward teacher compensation.
Yeah, and
So
this, again,
it's
I think the
rooted in
key
that.
is it's teacher incentive.
Mhm.
That's it. I mean, it has to be what the agency considers a teacher. So there are lots of other people in our system, right? I mean, custodians, bus drivers,
Exactly.
school nutrition, all those, but in this concept that it does not apply for them.
Well, I'm hugely in favor of anything that can get more compensation to our teachers, because I consider that a recognition of the incredible work that they do.
I agree. Thank you.
And you did mention it, the time commitment on the part of the teacher. And that it's not going to put anything else on their already very full,
Exactly.
not even a plate, they're very full platters.
Exactly. And anyone who has worked with me knows this story, but I'm going to share with you as well. During Omicron, we were working on campuses to cover the absence of substitutes, and I am certified to be a pre-K teacher, so I was working in a pre-K classroom with a full-day instructional assistant who has an MBA from Columbia, not the University in New York, but the country of. It's an MBA, ladies and gentlemen, and she's working as one of our paraprofessionals in a pre-K classroom, and she is a natural-born teacher. I'm going to try not to choke up because she just called me a couple of days ago. As a matter of fact, we've kept in touch all of this time. And I asked her, I said, Dolly, tell me your story. So I live in the neighborhood. This is the school my kids attended. My husband drops me off on his way to work. Should I need to go home earlier than he picks me up, I can walk home. I'm just very committed to this community, but I am not a certified teacher. She represents that 10%. And the days that I worked in that classroom, she worked a lot harder than 10%. So this is just a wonderful thing. So to see that our teachers have that same commitment to the folks who are walking the walk with them every day is just wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I had, I guess this is on. I had a couple questions, but I think Dr. Micah probably answered one, and really on the slide as well, where it says paid out in a one-time lump sum payment. So they don't have to, I guess, qualify every year. Like once they get it, it's good for 5 years?
It's for 5 years, so they will maintain that designation. And having said that, a teacher can receive or achieve a higher designation. So I may be at the recognized level, which is the first of the 3 levels. So I may be at a recognized level for the first year, the second year. I may then qualify as the next level, an exemplary teacher. That designation stays in place for 5 years. So it just resets the clock, but now at a higher level with a greater allotment funding. And then again, I could maintain that level for 5 years, or I could again, at some point in those 5 years, become at the highest level, which right now is the master level.
So what if there are 60-40 percentage decreases?
Tell me more.
Is that part of their
I'm
eligibility?
so you're so if the student growth data falls below, at this time the guidelines say that they will stay, that the designation stays in place. The good news is, when you're working at this high a level, it's going to be a very unusual, if not extenuating circumstance for that to shift. These are going to represent the teachers that are working at that highest of high levels. Great question. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Yes. How many what percentage of our campuses will this, is it all campuses?
All.
Okay.
And that is the wonderful thing. Moving all the way through English 1 and Algebra 1 is our only reach right now into high school, but that allows us to say all of our campuses.
Great. And then you mentioned there was one person who's pursuing the
Yes.
board on their own.
On their own.
Do we already have a handful, or how many do we have that
We
have
have
gone
we
through
have
that
one.
process?
We have one right now that is pursuing. We've had.
Did anybody jump on it a couple of years ago knowing this?
How many
Well-
national board certified teachers do we have?
That's a better.
Currently, we have 3. We don't have any right now.
None.
Okay.
We had one. We've had one that recently passed.
Right. The thing about national board certification, it was something that people could pursue on their own. It wasn't necessarily recognized or rewarded to go and do it.
Right.
What this program is setting you up as saying, hey, go out and do this because it's good.
Beneficial.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there's a monetary gain towards
Sure.
pursuit.
And it is quite an arduous process. So this will hopefully invite many to pursue it, where in the past, because it's a 2-year process, many begin the process and then, life happens.
Right.
And so you have to get back into the process. So hopefully by incentivizing it in this way, we will then also through the interview process be able to identify teachers who really think, yep, I can commit the next 2 years to making this happen.
Sure. If I understood this correctly, it's kind of the application approval process is basically a 3-year process. Did I understand that correctly? So at that point, have we already identified, will whatever teachers have the board certification will be kind of in that program? I guess while we're going through this process, if we have a teacher that decides to leave the district for any reason, will that, I guess if it hasn't been approved, then it doesn't necessarily follow them at that point, or how does that work?
Well, regardless of our designation plan, the national board certification, if they're in that
That will
process.
stay,
That will
correct.
stay. But if they start now, that will align them with that year 3 that's shown here of when we will begin to designate teachers in our first cohort. So
Okay.
if our current plan is approved, then they will fall into that same time frame of earning the designation if they stay on track.
Got it. Okay.
So- I'm sorry.
Once we are in this whole process, year 3 and beyond, then that just follows the teacher wherever they go at that point.
Correct. And so does the designation. So just
Right.
to,
Right.
at that point. Yes,
But,
sir.
but I think, Mr. Byer, to your point, and I think we explained this, but it's worth saying it again. If they move from a campus where they're making 32,000, if they jump even in with our own district, they may go to a campus that isn't designated as high a need. And so while they are a master teacher and getting 32,000, their new campus, they may get 18.
Got it. Okay.
Do you see?
Yeah.
So while, correct,
Based on the need.
based on the need. We don't establish that,
Got
the
it.
agency does it for us, but it's just, that's the piece. And so, for some, they may get a master's level at one campus and decide, I'm actually going to take my talent, because I get 12,000 for that designation here, I'm going to take it to this school where I can get the opportunity to make $30,000, and they can leave, and that designation goes with them, and now they're going to make the $30,000. So they have some ability in there to decide where they wish to share their talents and gifts with. Does that make sense?
And they could leave and go like outside Northeast, right?
They could.
I mean, but the goal is to
Mhm.
have them, if they're going to try and move campuses, have them do it within.
Right. Because we're going to very clearly show them, and we already have that information to say, here are the designations, and here's how much funding you would get to be at this campus, this campus, this campus, this campus. Because I think our highest is 32,000, or pretty close to it. It's pretty high. Is it 30,000?
It was 28,000.
Oh, 28. I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot of money. So, but it varies.
Correct.
Just depending on numbers.
So one last question. So just to clarify something that you said, somebody could be working on that national certification now.
Yes.
Are we advertising that or trying to encourage people to do that, or is that just a?
So that's the process now that we've determined we can have our cohort with Region 20 and our own. So we will begin over the next several months to help those that are interested
Okay.
pursue that opportunity.
Okay.
And again, still letting them know they can do it on their own, but we want to establish
Okay.
our own way that we can support them within the
Because
district
we,
as well.
we don't want them to say, go out and figure it out. We want to say, here are some opportunities for you if you wish to gain it.
Okay.
And here are the ways to go through it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, great presentation. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Item 10, new business for possible board action. A, discussion and possible action regarding allegations against trustee Marcia Landry. I'm going to make it, I know we have some people who have signed up to speak to this agenda item, but I'm going to make a statement first. The board does not have the authority to remove a trustee. Per Mrs. Landry, CPS did not investigate the allegations. This is a personal and private matter requiring due process. The board will continue to monitor the situation. Do you want to call up the speakers now?
Number 1.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Melendez, and I'm a new parent, just married with a daughter, and I live in Trustee Landry's district, and I can attest she's a great and fantastic person. And my wife, daughter, and myself, I've had dinner with her and the entire family on multiple occasions. She's been to my wedding, and her family's been there to my wedding, and we know their character, and we know they've raised great children. Marcia and Rodney are honest, kind, thoughtful, and considerate people. I would trust my own daughter under their care. But they will speak out if they see something wrong, which is why I suspect we're here today. And they, like I said, they've raised amazing children, and these allegations arise, strangely enough, right after she's elected. I mean, nothing like this has ever happened to her before or to the family, and it happens the moment after she's elected. And I would just like to ask the board, does the board have a policy on handling personal matters such as these? Is it appropriate to have personal matters like this brought out in the public domain like we're doing right now? Has anyone asked an attorney if it's okay to discuss these matters in a public domain like we're doing right now? If you have spoken to an attorney, I think they would have advised you that this should be handled in executive session. Okay? And so why is all this happening? For those of you that don't know, Marcia has sounded the alarm in NEISD, letting parents know that there are sexually explicit content made available to students in the school library. And I believe she's being punished for it. Marcia began emailing the superintendent about possibly removing these sexually charged books from the school portal, I think back in August. And there's been delay after delay, stall tactic after stall tactic. And if anyone wants to know what the superintendent has done, all you would have to do is launch an open records request on those emails. You would see that there's been virtually no response. And so, I was really contemplating reading an excerpt from one of these books, that really that really are in question, but it's really disgusting. And, you know, there should be libraries on, you know, arithmetic, English, history, science, those types of things in our library. But when there's talk of oral sex, anal sex, it's really disgusting. And, you know, we're presented with, you know, etiquette on how to behave when speaking up here in front of y'all. And yet this kind of material is led into the school library. I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know, hypocritical. All right, thanks.
Number 5.
Hello, I'm Bill Abrera, and I'm in the Reagan cluster. And I do find it reprehensible that this is even on the agenda item. You read that this is a private matter, and it is. It's a private matter. And I wish the best for Marcia Landry. She's a great trustee. What I find as an investigator is that the only way that this becomes a public issue is by the story being leaked. Without that story being leaked by somebody, then you can't bring it into a public forum. And I think that there's some shady activity going on there. Because in this country, we are presumed innocent. And now you're holding this in a public forum for people to come up here, what I think is a public flogging. We're going to hear some people probably asking for Miss Landry's head on a platter. It's wrong. I suggest that people show grace. And we'll see who comes up here and shows grace. As a board, you should love one another. You should love one another and show the grace that she deserves, because this is an allegation. She is not guilty of anything. And so if you're thinking about taking any actions, which I believe that you said you can't, then what's the purpose of this other than to try to shame her publicly? It's reprehensible. And then to understand that there is a board member who likes a post about this story that was leaked to the press and likes it when she's going through difficult times. Grace says love people, support people, because we're innocent. If you want to have allegations, I made one right now that somebody leaked this to the press, because there's no way this story gets found by some reporter than by accident. You either have shills that are here now that did your work for you, or you did it yourself. So are we going to have an agenda item about that? I'll be here if you do. You know why? Because I'll say that's reprehensible too. Just because some person like myself comes up here and says that you've leaked information and you haven't kept things private, keep it in executive session. If she's found guilty, then take action. But it's not the place. Show grace, show love. Thank you.
Number 7.
Go Air Force. Hi, my name is Aileen Boone. I was appalled by the so-called investigative report on KSAT regarding our board member. It was one-sided and unsubstantiated, and it should have never made the news. And I agree with the last person. And I'm grateful that you spoke up and said that there is no CPS investigation going on. That's very key for us to know. If there is no investigation going on, then this shouldn't be on the agenda. It's a moot point, and I believe the president should have kicked it, knocked it, and done something about it. If there is an ongoing investigation, then let Child Protective Services do their job completely and bring it to the board. I know several teens who have made false claims of abuse against their parents. I've sent you all an email about a military family that had to endure that, and I put my personal story of my rebellious teen that I had to send away for a year. So please allow the system to do its job and stand by your board member until it's complete. And remember, innocent people are, remember, innocent until proven guilty used to be a part of the justice system. I do pray for all of you for wisdom and discernment in all of this and all of your decisions, and I do appreciate all the time that you all put into your kid, taking care of the kids and the teachers. And do know that you are prayed for regularly. I know you're up against a lot, and I appreciate it. Thank you. God bless you.
Number 8.
Members of the board, I'm a parent living here in the NEISD, and I voted for Mrs. Landry. These allegations
Will
are
you
disturbing.
please state your name for the record?
Stephen Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you. These allegations are disturbing, as allegations typically are, but in cases like this, I also find myself wondering if an interested party tipped off the media in order to allow the allegations to be as widespread and damaging as possible in order to try the accused in the court of public opinion. I personally find the process so far to be worrisome, to say the least. As a foster adoptive parent, I've seen true allegations of abuse and I've seen false allegations. I actually adopted 2 children whose parents lost their legal right to raise their children over abuse, which was proven by officials following due process of law. So I have no problem with consequences for bad behavior. But I've also sat in a courtroom while a mother was maligned by the state for abuse which was later discovered to be falsely claimed. So I've seen both sides of these situations, which has convinced me that it's important to wait for the process to play out. I would caution all of you to not simply be the judge, jury, and executioner in this process when the evidence has yet to be thoroughly presented and the defense has yet to even be heard. I'd also remind you that allegations can be leveled at anyone. And if you act in haste on this, one day your own position could be threatened in the same manner. And additionally, I'll ask, will we be electing our leaders in the future, or will we just choose them temporarily until someone says something salacious, and then we just override the process and get rid of the person? The mission statement for any ISD calls for the encouragement of responsible citizenship, and in that light, I would like to remind you that in our society, we are not required to prove our innocence. The state is required to prove guilt through the due process of law. So far, all I've heard is allegations, and now my fear is that this body is prepared to skip the trial as soon as they are able to and move directly to sentencing, which I believe would be an error at this junction. Thank you for your time.
Number 10.
My name is Michael Roth, and I am absolutely appalled that this was brought in public light the way that it was. There is absolutely no justifying airing someone's personal matters in a public forum that's supposed to be dedicated to our children. This has nothing to do with our children whatsoever. This is an attack against a brand new board member who, like mentioned before, is looking into the genderqueer and the blowjob books and all of this trash that you guys are allowing into our system. This is absolutely insane. George Orwell couldn't have written a narrative like this. The dystopian way that this is being approached and addressed is absolutely unfounded. To take a private allegation that has not been addressed or investigated, to take an innocent woman and put her name on that paper there, just so that you guys can smear her name, is appalling. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You guys are disgusting. I'm done. Thank you.
Number 11.
My name is Jackie Watts. I had 3 kids go through NEISD. They are very well-adjusted, successful adults. I think very highly of Madison High School, where all 3 graduated from. I've known Marcia for 5+ years now. I've been involved in her family activities. Her son has spent the night at my house. I took in my great niece and nephew, which came from drug-infested homes. And Marcia was a mentor to me during this time, and how to lovingly approach those kids who had never known love. And I don't know what I'd have done without her during that time. So I'm honored to be able to stand up for her today. It's my pleasure. As the others, I'm appalled at this board and Madison High School. These high school teachers groomed a special needs teenager for whatever purpose they had, I don't know. And many of you board members went right along with it. Who cares about this teenage boy? Have y'all even thought about him and what this is doing to him? He's not capable of understanding what has happened to his parents because of his allegations. Anybody think about that? Did anybody ask? The media darn sure didn't. The media got a story and ran with allegations. I'm ashamed of the media, and I'm ashamed of most of the members on this board. Thank you.
Number 13.
My name is Summer Broom, and I'm in the Reagan cluster. I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about the lady that I want to second her comment about changing the requirement for health to being an optional elective. Parents very much want this change. I have a son in a magnet program. I've spoken with Mr. Jarrett about pathways for magnets students. The way his pathway is set up, even though he went in with 8 hours as a freshman, he will still have to take summer school for 2 years in order to graduate on time. So taking health out and letting it be optional for parents would be amazing. I know all of the charters in private schools in San Antonio are teaching health in biology class or other science classes, or just not teaching it at all. There's actually quite a lot of reasons why health should be made optional, but I'm going to save that for another time because I really came here to speak on Miss Landry. Today here on Easter Monday, and with us just finishing this Lent season, I feel that this Bible story is quite fitting. John 8:7. Jesus faced a mob that was eager to execute a woman caught in adultery. He put a stop to it with a simple challenge. Anyone who has no sin in their life should step forward and throw the first stone. The media sure was eager to throw a stone, and it certainly is interesting how the media was able to influence agenda items. Apparently, all aspects of each of your lives is up for being an agenda item, especially if the media does a story on it. So if you're caught having an affair, or your business files bankruptcy, or if you are caught drinking at a social event, will that be an agenda item? If the media does a story on health being an elective option class, like Round Rock ISD, will that get it on the agenda? You each took an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution. I would ask for all of you to take a look in the mirror and make sure that you're upholding your oath and not just your personal feelings.
Number 15.
Hello, my name is Kim Wynn. I wanted to address the board on the public airing of charges against Marcia Landry. Several things bother me about the rush to judgment over what should have been a private matter. My husband and I raised 3 kids to adulthood, and if any of you have done so, you can attest to the fact that the teen years are difficult in almost every household. Emotions run high, and feelings and moods change rapidly. When Mrs. Landry's stepson discussed home issues with teachers and special education counselors, why did this become public knowledge? Why did news cameras follow Mrs. Landry into this district auditorium and question her while filming? How were they alerted to this private allegation? I myself taught for 40 years. Never in all those years was I allowed to discuss my students' conversations with anyone outside of my campus, not even my husband. How is it that these allegations became public knowledge? Who reported it to the news media? Why was Mrs. Landry's name posted on today's agenda? I think that the district and this board has done a great disservice, not only to Mrs. Landry and her constituents,
but to the reputation of this great district. If this matter was to be discussed at all by the board, why wasn't it done in executive session? My personal opinion is that Mrs. Landry has been targeted for her viewpoints. Her single-member district elected her to represent them, and she has done a fine job in listening to their needs. How can this board air what at this point are unsubstantiated private matters about one of their own? You should follow our founders' basic rules of innocence until proven guilty. Look for ways to support each other as well, and this will result in better guidance from your board as a whole. Remember that by allowing public accusations that have not been proven, you are tearing down public trust and appearing to condone a form of political persecution. Please raise your own standards of what is just and ethical, and realize that any of you could be in the same position of unfounded public ridicule. Support each other and stop throwing stones of unproven accusations. When I was waiting upstairs in the overflow room, I kept watching the screen, and one of the sayings there was, "We are in this together." Please remember that. Thank you for your time.
Number 16.
All of that was well said, what everyone has said. We teach the children the golden rule, and I think we need to exemplify that up here. We have to treat others the way we would want to be treated. Even in the most politically charged places, the places we make fun of, DC, corrupt places, they even know that children and families are hands off limits. I support you.
Number 17.
Patrick Von Dolan, resident of District 5, Shannon Grona's district. Well, I appreciate you taking time to listen. Someone listened 1,990 years ago plus 4 days. 1,990 years ago plus 4 days. Jesus said to Peter, "If you live by the sword, you die by the sword." Those are words to live by today, because truth never changes. Whoever's behind this attack, personal attack on Marsha Landry, should be ashamed of themselves, because you'll be held accountable to the same standard. I suggest you make amends and reparation, seek confession, and ask for forgiveness. The idea of coming out, and I appreciate, Shannon, you, as chairwoman, stating what you did about this is a personal matter, won't be discussed, but the fact of the matter is, Marsha Landry's name is written all over this agenda right here. That makes it public. That conflicts with the very statement you made when you began this agenda item. The board owes her a public apology, begging for her forgiveness. You've destroyed the reputation of a good woman, a reputation you would never seek to have be treated this way as yourself. Dylan Collier, who is not here tonight, interestingly, should be ashamed of himself for running this report, of taking conjecture in a court appearance between a custody hearing between two people of divorced parents. We all know those are emotional situations, and just because somebody is sworn in doesn't mean they're telling the truth. For Dylan to run this story without substantiating it is irresponsible and immature. Don't repeat what he does and do this. You owe her an apology. I have to say that for Madison High School to be participating in the grooming of a special needs child or any child, in teaching them what to say, that goes against the parents. One of the biggest things about any ISD that's a problem right now is through the sex ed education or anything else is not referring their children back to the parents. Talk to an adult, the curriculum says. It should be saying talk to the parent. In this case, the child should have been instructed to talk to the parents and work this out. You made this public by putting it right here on this agenda. You owe her an apology. You need to make it public. And I ask you to do it now. Have a good night.
And that's all.
Item B,
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry.
Could I ask that we shift the agenda? We have one person to speak to an agenda item that's not until the very end. Would it be possible to move that agenda item up? Take it out of order?
Are y'all fine with that?
That's the hidden forest issue. We still have one speaker.
Okay. Staff, are you okay with that? Okay.
Madam President, sorry, do we need to do no action on item A? Because it was a possible action. Do we just need to state no action?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have
Just
a-
keep us procedurally.
No
on
action.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item F, operations. 1, possible action regarding Hidden Forest PTA turf field donation. Dr. Mitchell, we have a person that wants to speak to this.
Number 4.
Good evening. My name is Jason Houston. I'd like to state that I'm speaking on behalf of the PTA at Hidden Forest community this evening. I'd like to take the time to address the board on the matter of maintaining the turf field awarded to Hidden Forest Elementary School over the past month through District 9 Project Bond Initiative. It was brought to my attention that numerous schools in the district have the Spark Park, which Hidden Forest has had it for a few years. The district accepted the responsibility to maintain and to maintain the district and to keep up with the district initiative. This field is enjoyed immensely by the kiddos at the Hidden Forest Elementary School. The field is used by the kids and the parents and coaches, and they all play in recreational leagues around the community. This is a very small, tight-knit community. If there's a problem, we always have suggestions and solutions to follow through. Because we have found this field every day, because we use this field every day and see that the needs a little tender love and care, we are being proactive in taking initiative to use this bond project opportunity. We are helping the district to get funding to maintain this field, which is very expensive. The turf is a safe, better place for the kiddos to play and be active. I think it's a win-win. The community has voted on it. The District 9 has accepted the project, and really all we're needing is you guys to approve it so we can finish and get it going. I know there's some maintenance issues that's been brought up, and it's really just a quarterly, what they call a power broom, inexpensive equipment that the PTA is offered to buy. We've had conversations with Mrs. Powell, the principal, and we think that it's a custodial issue that they can handle on a quarterly basis. It's not a big maintenance thing. I know that over time, turf breaks down, those things get old, but the current state that we have now is a bare field that had grass, and now it has like a geo grid that they're tripping on. There's holes all in the field. Turf is the answer, and we've got funding. The district doesn't have to provide anything. They just have to maintain the same maintenance schedule that they're on now, which has not been much. So we have funding. Let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Mitchell? No. There.
There he goes. Okay. Madam President, Dr. Micah, board, executive staff, and guests, we're asking you to consider a board donation from Hidden Forest PTA of a turf soccer field. The value of the field is $150,000. The funding has been secured from a District 9 grant through Councilman Courage's office. They had a participatory budgeting kind of drive where different organizations put out projects that they wanted funded. Citizens, residents of that district were able to vote on it, and the Hidden Forest PTA was awarded $150,000. That will cover the costs of the materials and the installation, but it does not cover the cost of things like repair, maintenance, and then eventually either removal or replacement. So those are just some things that we wanted you to take into consideration as you consider accepting or not accepting the donation from the PTA.
So did the PTA go after the grant?
Yes.
They did?
They have been awarded the funds.
Okay, so they went to the city and asked for the grant?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess their PTA voted on that, and
I can't speak
Madam
to whether
President, I can
PTA
tell you, Mrs. Hugh and I received an email from the PTA president because there was the maintenance concern that Dr. Mitchell's talking about. But District 9, Councilman Courage does, everybody can submit. Their PTA did the paperwork and submitted, and then they were selected as one of the 20 projects funded by city money for the turf field. The issue, from my understanding, and what Mrs. Hugh, you had the same emails I did from the PTA president, was the upkeep and maintenance is not part of that. The city will pay for it, but then there's a quarterly cleaning.
Correct.
The PTA can buy the broom, but then there's some obligations they would be making on the district for some maintenance. And I think that's where the concern is. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so
Mrs. Hugh, I don't know if you have a different
does the district have the funds in order to do the maintenance?
And
And
to
what are we
expand
talking
on
about?
that, look, that is part of it. The other piece is, this is just for you all to consider. You know, we don't really have an opinion either way on it. The question becomes, once this is done there, how many more times could it be possibly replicated? And then not just that, but you know, Hidden Forest took it upon themselves to go out and find a grant. What we've seen in the past, where great PTAs have gone out and done something, and then it's become an expectation from the district standpoint, from the community to say, now everybody gets it. And so that's fine. Those are the types of things that we just discussed. And again, you know, if you all approve it, it's $150,000, so we just can't just kind of blindly accept it. We just want you to understand with some of it. One is the issue of maintenance, and it is, even our turf fields are kept up by athletics.
Correct.
It's not by anyone else. But then two, it's just the upkeep over it, because if we accept it, you know, we aren't setting money to the side to maintain that field.
So can the PTA pay to maintain the field and the upkeep? Sure.
They had
If
offered
they have
to
it in their
purchase,
budget?
according to the principal, they had offered to use garden committee funds to purchase the broom device for the quarterly maintenance.
Okay.
Just what I would just say is, just looking forward 10 years from now, when that field needs to either be removed or replaced, you know, will they have money set aside for that, or will there be other provisions made for that?
Yeah, so they're kind of encumbering the PTA going forward for.
Which I don't believe that they can do. As I understand it, a current PTA cannot encumber a future PTA, and that's my concern. The other piece of this isn't a donation to the district, then become the district's responsibility. I know that when I was on PTAs in the past, and like we bought a computer, yeah, there was a nice old tag on it that said donated by the PTA, but it was the property of the district. It became the inventory of the district.
I mean,
which was
ultimately, if
fine.
it becomes
that
a
was-
safety hazard, we're going to have to deal with it.
That's where I'm going.
Correct.
Is where does the liability issues come in and things like that for the future? I would really, I am so ecstatic that parents have banded together to do some things for our schools. I love that. We are teaming up wonderfully to do things for our community, and that's vitally important. We need the help of our parents to do things for our children. My concerns is, per the information that we received, that the PTA didn't vote on it, that this was a committee that did the work, but not the PTA. So I'd like to make sure that we can get some clarification on those issues. I don't want to turn down the donation, but I would like to maybe postpone this item until we could get a little bit more information about long-term effects of the maintenance of the field and the responsibilities of the PTA and of the district or the campus, whether it comes out of the campus budget, because personally, I can't see that we can encumber the PTA, but would it be possible to encumber the campus? Would it come out of the campus budget? So I have a lot of things.
I would agree with you. My real question tied to all this is, what's the latest the board can accept the donation? Is there an expiration date on those funds from the city so that maybe we can work through those logistics and bring it back? I don't want it to go, if there's a drop dead date, we should be aware of that. Because that's the only thing I don't know, that we weren't told in the email.
Mr. Hilliard, I don't think there's a drop dead date, but I don't know that for.
And I don't know what the city council budget cycle is like.
For certain.
If we have a month or two, I agree with Mr. Hughes, we need to get through some of the other logistics to make sure that it's sustainable.
Would Mr. Houston know maybe about any of this? Do you know any of the deadlines on any of this? Mr. Houston?
Oh, I think he left.
Oh, did he leave?
He did, yeah. I was unfortunate.
Oh, darn.
Well,
Okay.
Well, and we do have a special meeting April 24th.
That's what I was going to say. Can I make a proposal that we can try to gather the information you're asking for, cobble it together for the special meeting at the end of this month, and that way then we can say, hey, here's the time frame, or actually we have a few months to look at some of this, and that way then we can give you a little bit more information.
I think that'd be great, so we'd have a more informed decision for long term.
And future liabilities, future costs, future everything. I really don't want to turn down this donation if there's any way to do this.
Sure.
At the same time, I understand exactly what you're talking about with other campuses, and I can think of the sunshades as a perfect example.
That's what I was referring to.
Yes, and what we had to do at that point was actually go out and put it in a bond to where we could get sunshades for all the campuses. Because not every campus could afford to put sunshades out, but they became very necessary, and they've been a great addition, but it meant a bond item.
So I do have another question. Help me understand this, the community's access to the Spark Park now that we've got fencing and gates and.
So that is an agreement through the city. You mean during the instructional day?
Well, I know that they're not allowed to come on. I know that it's open to the community, I thought, after school hours.
Mm-hmm.
But who's responsible for locking the gates and I mean.
The custodians.
The custodians.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we do still allow the community to go onto those campuses.
Yeah, that was the agreement. That was the
Okay.
agreement with
Okay.
the city when they put some money towards the Spark Parks.
No, and that could be part of this discussion too, if that field is part of that Spark Park.
Well, I think it was.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then that means it's going to be getting a lot more use than maybe some other campuses would too, that would have this type of field. So if and that's an active, involved community. I mean, that school is their heart, so.
Okay, so what we want to do is take no action on this and ask for further information. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, no. Just quick question. Is there any way that somebody could explain to us the maintenance issues that these things can have? Is there, like special things that have to, I know the cleaning every quarter, I get that, but is there anything else? Reattachment, taking sections out, things like this?
So far, you're doing a great job of describing them. You really are. I mean, these are the things that can get torn. Like I'll give you, for instance, at all of our high schools, we have those turf fields for practice, right? Those fields used to be open to the public. What happened is we had to start locking them because on weekends, community were coming in and barbecuing on the top of the fields.
Well, what's to keep them from doing that?
These are just things that you have to consider in accepting something like this. So, our field over at the sports park with the baseball field, I know we've had to replace pieces of it. So sometimes, I don't know, Coach Parker, are you in here? No, he's probably upstairs. So I know at that sports park there was actually a drainage issue, and a part of it started to sink underneath where we had to lift it up and redo the underneath. So there can be issues with it. Could it be great? Absolutely, and we may never have an issue for 10 years. The question becomes, in 10 years then, it's ours, it's on our property, so then what do we do with it? How do we continue to fund that moving on, because you have to replace it at some point. It doesn't go on forever. So these are just things I think that you all are wisely asking, like, what does that all look like? What does that mean to us in 10 years from now? And then what's the unintended consequence of accepting a great gift like this that people worked very hard for? And I just want to make sure you all understand it up front. Hey, this is what it is, rather than just taking it on and then we've caused something different, right, or a different problem.
Are we involved at the reviewing the construction contract or anything like that at this point, or has it even gotten to that point?
They have a quote that they gave us, and our engineering department would assist with any kind of installation to make sure that everything is done properly.
Okay, because my fundamental question is, the bid still good? Because it looked like it was back from November, and so I guess we need to make sure that that's still appropriate for the school before we even, because all of a sudden that $136,000 could now be $165,000 if we're not careful. And I don't want to put the school in a position where now they have to raise an extra $20,000 for something they thought they were going to get. But then I think reiterate all the rest of the questions about, are we overseeing it? Who's installing it? All of that stuff. We need to make sure we have answers on all that.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, so that's no action on that item. Item B, internal audit. 1, possible action regarding independent audit services contract. Ms. Shoesmith.
Good evening. President Grona, trustees, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight I bring to you a request for your approval to award the contract for independent audit services. A little background information. The Texas Education Code requires all public school districts to have their fiscal accounts audited annually at district expense by a certified public accountant holding a permit from the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy. An independent audit must meet the minimum requirements and be in the format prescribed by the State Board of Education. Texas Government Code states that a district shall make the selection of their provider for independent audit services based on demonstrated competence and qualifications and a fair and reasonable price. In addition to this guidance, TEA further states that along with considering qualifications and cost, districts should also consider other factors when selecting their independent audit services, such as experience of the interested accounting firm in public school accounting and the availability and location of the interested accounting firm's staff. This contract for independent audit services is for a 1-year period with the option to extend the agreement on an annual basis for an additional 4 years. So this current contract could be through the end of fiscal year 27. The request for qualification, the RFQ, was issued to all known companies and advertised in a San Antonio newspaper as required. An evaluation committee comprised of Senior Director of Accounting and Finance, Jeff Coates, Senior Director of Grants Administration and Financial Control, Ms. Mary Alex, and myself, was formed to evaluate the responses received. And I'd like to publicly thank them. They're both here with me tonight, and we're such a great wealth of knowledge. Our committee evaluated the RFQ responses in 2 rounds. The first round, all interested firms' proposals were evaluated on the required criteria, the qualifications and price factors. All firms met the minimum criteria. The evaluation committee then selected 3 firms to move on to our final round of review. In this second and final round, the firms were evaluated not only on their qualifications and price, but also on their depth of experience in public school accounting and auditing, depth of experience auditing public school districts similar to our size, the location of the firm, the availability of the audit team to conduct work on site, the rotation of key personnel to ensure objectivity, and the overall 5-year fee structure to ensure long-term fiscal responsibility. The evaluation committee called and spoke with each of the firm's references. They put references of other school districts that they audit. As well, we conducted interviews with the 3 firms on March 22nd of last month. Throughout the evaluation process, the evaluation committee kept the district's balanced scorecard in the forefront of our minds, specifically priority 4, stewardship, which guides us to plan and manage funds and our resources responsibly. While some of the evaluation criteria was really quite similar and equal between the interested firms, we decided upon the selected firm for 2 important reasons: a local firm here in San Antonio with the most fair and reasonable price. The cost comparisons for the firms were provided to you prior to tonight's action item, along with the rankings, the evaluation rankings, of the committee in those 2 rounds. So you have that to reference. After our review and careful evaluation of the firms, the evaluation committee has selected ABIP as our recommendation to you this evening. ABIP is a local firm with offices here in San Antonio. The partners responsible for our audits would be Ms. Janet Pittman and Mr. Michael Del Toro. Both of them are here tonight. Thank you again for coming. Together, they have over 55 years of experience in auditing and accounting of government entities and public school districts in Texas. It is recommended that the firm of ABIP be retained as our external auditor for Northeast ISD for the year ending 2023, with the possibility of renewal for 4 more years. And at that, are there any questions?
Ms. Corona, Madam President, before you take it, I should have said this before Ms. Shoesmith started, but I need to recuse myself from this item.
I got a couple questions. Thank you, Ms. Shoesmith, for that. On page 4 is looking at the round 2 criteria. And so ABIP, thank you all for being here. But I see Whitley Penn, 3 areas they scored better, which is more experienced audit staff and interview. Now, I'm not sure if Whitley Penn is local or not. Their cost was a few $1,000s more a year, so about $31,000 over the 5-year scope. But there is the balanced district scorecard, but it is about balance too. So is Whitley Penn a locally staffed?
No, sir.
They're not. Where are they? Just curious. Austin, Dallas? Houston. So they don't have local staff then?
Correct.
Okay. So that was one of the factors that we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Because I was looking at y'all's criteria, so just trying to figure out as we're balancing all that. Okay. I think that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam President.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the public accounting firm of ABIP PC for the independent audit services for the district for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023, with the possibility of renewal for 4 years?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries, and Mr. Byer recused himself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. Item C, Board Policy. 1, follow-up discussion and possible action regarding revisions to Board Policy FNG Local. So that, all of the changes based on our workshop were submitted. Mr. Lopez did review it. He had a comment about the email, making sure that whoever monitored it needed to ensure that FERPA protected or other confidential information was not shared with anyone. So that would be a staff thing. Are there any comments or questions about the changes to this FNG with all of the changes from the last meeting?
Madam President, I have 2 comments and then 2 questions. But first off, it was a great discussion. I watched online, and thank you for reading my comments. I appreciate that, Mrs. Grona. The fact that we got the timelines at level 3 and 4 was awesome. The 2 questions were, at the end of the last meeting, Dr. Micah, we talked about, or y'all talked, I wasn't here, an infographic or flow chart. But was that, I didn't see that in our package. Is that not there yet?
We haven't got, once
once you all
Do this?
confirm this,
Okay.
then we can work on an
Okay.
infographic. I don't want to design an infographic if you have any more changes.
That's fair, and I might have missed that nuance in the conversation. And the other comment, Mr. Byer had brought up the good point. We had done parent or guardian in most of our recent updates. I didn't see the parent or guardian change here. Do we need to do that before we finally approve it, or approve it with that
I think
change?
we can approve it with that change, and I apologize, I didn't
No,
catch that.
it was.
What I was wondering though, because like we did days as a one descriptor and at the beginning, wonder if at the beginning, just for brevity's sake, and just say, the term parent here is meant to include parent guardian.
Parent or legal guardian.
And then that way then it covers everything in the document without having to go back and make a bunch of changes. Because I caught that too, and I know we had such a great discussion about it.
Just put up there with definitions like we did with compliant grievance, but
Yeah.
the parent, I'm okay with that if there's no
Yeah.
issues. It's simpler.
I mean, we can approve it with that, assuming there's,
Yeah.
everything else, that
Yeah.
we can just include that with whatever approval.
Yeah.
That
Not
where
come back.
we're doing those definitions, we just say parent. The term parent means parent guardian.
So it could be on page 4 of the document where it says general provisions, person with whom to file, and then it defines days.
Yes.
Well, or there where it says definitions, the term
page-
complaint.
Oh, at the very
and
top,
grievance.
Page one
on
would be an
page
option.
1.
The very beginning. Yeah.
Okay, and, so
Yeah.
put
Yeah,
parent
I
guardian
wondered,
under
maybe days should
definitions.
be moved up there to definitions then too, I don't know. I knew we took it out in one place.
I do think it should be at the definitions because the second sentence under complaints says student or parent complaints. That way we've defined parent
Okay.
and then we start talking about them. And then the term is parent or legal guardian with the
Yeah.
exact wording.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it's good. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
No, I think I think we talked about putting days up in the definitions, if that's what we just said.
Okay, so we're going to move days
Is that what I just heard?
from
Okay.
page 4 to under definition.
Yeah, because I think that sets it up so that people won't have to find it later.
Okay?
Right.
Yep.
And then define the parent guardian.
Yeah, I think other than that,
Okay, anything else?
I'm there.
God, do you have that, Ms. Turner? Thank you. All right, so do I have a motion to approve the revisions to board policy FNG local?
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Item D, Campus Administration 1, possible action regarding approval of T-TESS appraiser. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Shyla Wooden will address this agenda item.
Good evening. Board policy and Texas Education Code requires that teachers are appraised by a certified appraiser who's their direct supervisor or someone who's approved by the board. Although all of our principals and assistant principals are certified appraisers, we have experienced retirements this year and also employees on a leave of absence, leaving some campuses with not enough appraisers to fulfill all the components of T-TESS. And so tonight we present to you a name to approve who can serve as an appraiser for our campuses. And that name is Martha Rodriguez-Stoffert, one of our executive directors of school administration. This may be something we come to you in future years or months to do. We only have to approve her once, and then if we add any new names, we'd have to come forward with that name specifically. But also with Tia, that might be something as well that we present more names for you in the future.
So we're just adding somebody as an appraiser?
Correct.
right?
You're just approving her to be a certified appraiser for campus personnel.
Does anybody have any questions about that?
Just one question. Is she the only above campus level T-TESS certified person, or are there multiple people at central office that are T-TESS?
We have others, some that may have to renew, but for now, we just designated her
Okay,
to
so
be the
we have
person.
more than her, because I was just saying it's always good to have a backup or alternate in case she ever has a family emergency. Okay, so we have multiple that can fill this role. We're just adding her.
Yes, sir.
She's not the single point of failure.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
it, Madam President, thanks.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the attached list of administrators as appraisers?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Whitten.
you.
Item E, Business Services 1, possible action regarding extension of depository contract. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests. Tonight we bring to you a request to extend our depository contract with Wells Fargo. This will be our third 2-year renewal. We first used them starting in 2019, so we respectfully request approval.
Anybody have any questions about that?
Yes. Have you checked out their financials?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because what I'm hearing, it's not good.
Right now, the flux of I guess, the banking system, but we are insured with in all our, I guess they have to provide securities for anything that we have in the banks. And really, it's just an in and out of that we use to pay bills and we have our monies in other areas. So they're just the depository bank for us that we use to pay bills and things of that type. So right now, if we were to go out for bid, I'm not sure we would get any more, I guess, bidders. It was hard a few years ago because a lot of the banks, the national banks, started, I guess, merging. But for our perspective, I think they're pretty strong. I know banking in general, but I have not heard anything about Wells Fargo.
There's a list that's not good.
Right.
So I just, but as long as you say that we are protected.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it would be devastating if they
Oh,
suddenly
yes.
did a bail-in and, you know, the school district loses money.
Right. No, ma'am. We would be covered.
Okay. All right, just checking.
Any other questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve the resolution extending the depository contract with Wells Fargo Bank N.A.?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding termination of 401A employee retirement plan. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President. I call on Susie Lackhorn, our Executive Director of Finance and Accounting, and Mr. David Gracia, our Senior Director of Employee Benefits, to talk about this topic.
That.
Is that the base, Mrs. Lockwood? Using the little gray tab.
Try it, Susan.
I have screws.
No, just try. Try speaking.
Hello.
Yeah. You're on.
All right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, we're bringing to you the dissolution of a very old retirement supplemental plan, and it was actually an incentive plan. And so Mr. David Gracia is going to walk you through this plan and why we want to dissolve it.
Good evening. So just a couple of slides with some background information. First of all, what is a 401A? This is an employer-sponsored profit-sharing plan that allows employers to provide dollar or percentage-based employer contributions on employees' behalf. And as Ms. Lackhorn mentioned, in 2005, NEISD created a 401A primarily as a retention and attendance incentive, but also to try to seed and promote supplemental retirement savings for our employees. In 2009, after 5 years, the plan was halted. We made a decision not to carry that forward. So since 2009, there's been no employer contributions to that plan. The plan as written had a 5-year investment schedule. So as of 2015, all the participants were fully vested, which means that all the funds in these accounts are or belong to the participants. In 2021, TIA, a different TIA that you've been hearing about today, TIA is a plan administrator, and they decided that it was no longer in their best interest to administer these accounts because there were no longer any injections of funds coming into those accounts. So at renewal time, they talked about raising fees close to 300%, those types of things. At that time, the Office of Employee Benefits decided to go to an RFP for a different administrator, and at that time, a company called Empower was selected as the best value for the district, and TIA submitted no bid at that time. Just some other information regarding the breakdown of the account. Part of that transition going from TIA to Empower involved a 60-month transfer of these funds. When we're talking about funds like this, they don't just go in a lump sum because it creates a hardship on the company that's releasing those funds. So it's not uncommon to have a 5-year plan like this. So essentially, every month, 1/60th of those funds go over to Empower. And what that's done is created two accounts for these participants. There's one on the TIA, which is sending it over, and then one in the Empower, the receiving, so employees have two accounts. There's roughly $10 million in the entire fund. 7 of that remains at TIA still, 3.5 or so, close to 4 are already at Empower. There's about 5,500 current participants, and I'll show you in the next schedule, but a lot of them are very small balances. And the record-keeping fees for those right now with Empower are $28 a year plus 60 base points, which is a 0.006 of whatever the balance is on those accounts. And I put that just so for a reference point, the 457 plans have a 0.0028 base points, which is significantly less than this 401A plan. I mentioned in the previous slide that there was a 5-year vestment schedule. Not everybody made that vestment schedule, and when people do not make the vestment schedule, we cannot recoup those funds that were contributed to them to the account on their behalf. So by default, they go into what's called the forfeiture fund, and there's a balance in that fund, and those funds have been used to kind of shield the smaller balance, or basically all the accounts for the fees that they've been incurring since we've moved over to Empower. So that's important because those funds will basically run out over time if we continue to allow that to happen. On the next slide, this is kind of a breakdown of where the accounts are and the balances. You can see less than 60% of the accounts have less than $50. So over 3,000 participants have less than $50. So in my previous, when I was talking about the fees, somebody has a $50 balance in their account, there's about $5 per month that would hit those fees. So within 10 months, those balances will be wiped out. If you take it all the way down to $5,000, which right now the plan as it's written allows us to liquidate any accounts with less than $5,000, that's 90% of these participants. So that's just kind of a breakdown of where the balances are and how they break out. So again, a lot of small balance type accounts. So the options really are two from our perspective. And number one would be to do nothing and just allow that to happen until the funds work out those smaller balance accounts. But I think the better plan and what we're asking for your approval is to start the process of terminating that plan or deconverting that plan. And that would require us to work with these two companies to just kind of safeguard as much as we can of those funds before they get eaten up by the fees. And the model for the deconversion process is here. It's pretty structured. The first step is coming to you here today to get your approval to move forward. Once we have that, we'll establish a termination date. We'll work with deconversion teams from TIA and from Empower to establish the communication tools, the dates that we would terminate, the options for rollovers that those employees would have, as well as any types of decisions to cut checks for those people and send them that information and all the tax implications from that. So that's about it. I guess we have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions regarding this? I'm sorry. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve commencement of the process necessary to terminate the 401A retirement plan and to authorize the superintendent or designee to proceed with execution of all necessary steps to terminate the plan?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item G, consent. 1, business services. A, bid items. B, 50,000 purchases. 2, operations. A, professional service contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 282 ESSER 3 and M&O program funds design and construction requirements. 3, minutes from March 2023. 4, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent?
Madam President, I'm not sure if I have to pull the item, but I need to recuse myself from item 1B, the 50,000 purchases.
So then you probably need to
pull
pull it.
that, and
Mhm.
also would like to pull item 3, minutes from March 2023.
Okay, anybody else have anything? So do I have a motion to approve consent without 1B and 3?
So moved.
Mr. Byer and Mr. Hilliard, I'll give you the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Okay. So item 1B, do I have a motion to approve 1B with Mr. Byer recusing himself?
So
Thank
moved, Madam
thank you,
President.
Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Okay, item 3, Mr. Byer.
Yeah, on the minutes, at the end, it's, hang on, under A2, where we talk about the review of discussion regarding student disciplinary policies. It recaps the discussion, but then there's some information here that was kind of follow-up to the discussion that's actually in the minutes. And I don't know if that's supposed to be in the minutes or if we needed to get an email response to all of us based on inquiries made. Because it says,
Which date was that?
Yeah,
this
which,
is, I'm sorry, March 27th. I apologize. Yeah, I'm sorry.
and when
March
did we get the
27th.
minutes emailed to us?
That was on Thursday, Madam President.
Thursday.
They were part of
Yeah.
the draft package with some other items and briefings. It's the 5th attachment, the last one.
I guess I haven't necessarily seen in our minutes before where we have a follow-up. In the minutes, it's information about some follow-up between Dr. Micah and
Oh,
Ms. Villarreal, and I just want to make sure that we're separating, if it's not an item that was discussed here, that we're not necessarily including in the minutes, does that make sense? If it's something we asked for later to be emailed to us.
are you talking about the
or
last
present-
sentence
the
in
last-
number 2?
Well,
Where- I'm
mixed
sorry.
in the second paragraph and the last sentence.
Oh, where he requested
where it-
staff look further?
Yes.
Or wait, what?
And I don't know that we necessarily need to change it, but it says, after some research conducted by staff, it was discovered that in the past, at least 10 schools did practice some concepts of restorative discipline. Upon this finding, Dr. Micah requested his staff look into it further at the 10 schools. That all happened after the meeting, and I don't know that that
Oh, I
was-
thought it was during the conversation of,
Okay, well,
It
then the
was.
last sentence, when it
and I think
says
that was in there too, because I think maybe that was where it was
Okay.
a request for a
Then I
report. and
completely
then-
misread that.
Okay,
That was my mistake. I read that as, I remember those discussions, but I don't remember, it read as if that had happened after the meeting, so I will
okay, so you good with that
move
then?
to approve
Okay, Do I have-
item, consent item 3.
Okay, do I have a
as
second?
Submitted.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 11, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. B, awarded bid report. C, federal grant report. D, open records request report. Those have been provided for you. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding board members' request for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration. Have a board member wishing for anything?
I do. Matter of fact, I had requested a couple of board meetings back about a report on our suicide prevention that we do in the district. And I had also given Dr. Micah a card to talk to one of the other school districts. And I was wondering, I was trying to do a follow-up on that because I'm really concerned because the numbers are just not good on that. And I'm wondering what we're doing to help these kids.
Do you want a report or do you want a presentation?
Something, you just give me some numbers, you tell me what you're doing. You don't have to go through a whole entire dog and pony show or anything like that. Just,
Yeah,
give me
because I
some.
know I gave the card to Mr. Jarrett, and I know he had reached out regarding that information that you provided. So,
Okay.
so you just want me to send y'all a follow-up to?
I'd just like a report to see if it's even feasible for something for us to even talk about as a board. If I don't know what's involved, so that's why I was asking if you could possibly do something, because the program sounded amazing and it was kid-driven.
Okay, so Ms. Villarreal, what we can do, why don't I provide you what we currently do?
Okay.
In-house, and then so that you can see the things that we are doing, and then that way then you can use that and compare it to that program that you sat in and decide whether that would amplify it or whether we already have enough. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do we need to make a motion on this, or is it just a report?
Well, it's a report.
Okay.
So, okay. And will we all get the report just for our all awareness? Good. Okay, so I just wanted, it'd be good to have
Mr.
it.
Hilliard, if I'm going to send it to
I
all
figured as
seven.
much, just
Yes,
making sure.
sir.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody?
Just one more question, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But is that something that we can then, if it looks like it would be good for our district, could we discuss it at a later date then? at that
Correct.
point?
That's why I'm saying, Ms. Villarreal, what I can do is provide to you all the things we currently do. All right? Then you can take a look at that and kind of compare it to what you sat in and decide, you know what, I think we're already doing enough, or, you know what, I think this is, and then you can put that on agenda and say, I want to discuss this being added to the school district.
That's great, but
Okay.
Did anybody actually reach out to the school district, the one that I had spoken to you guys about?
No, not at this time. We haven't reached out. We are in the process of working through a mental health program, and so we were working through that piece first, but I do have the card to contact them as well.
Okay, because I'd really like to see your take on,
ma'am.
and also the costs involved, because I know costs, that's but,
Yeah.
you know, there's no amount of cost that, if we could save a life, there's no cost that, you know,
Agreed.
is too great.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we'll follow up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I have a request for 2 summary emails. That's all to all 7 of us. So Dr. Micah, if you want to, the first one is about the status of the CETA program that I'm excited about and hope we're able to get launched next year. No pun intended, but I guess sort of a pun intended. I guess to include status of the NASA agreement. Are there any key industries that we still need for the professional steering committee, if that's what we're calling it? Pending key positions for the program itself. Are we still missing some key professionals or teachers? And any roadblocks, if any, that getting curriculum established with everything else you have going on. But kind of 4 simple bullet points.
Mr. Jarrett, I think, already has all this.
I would
so
say,
that's
I'm
gonna
sure
be
you
pretty
do.
quick
It would be nice
for us
to
to provide it to you.
Nice to get an update since I know you guys have been working really hard on that. The second email that I would like email to all of us, we've received, and you might be already working on this, but I'm going to get the request out first. We've received an email letter from a Evelyn Delgado with the Healthy Futures of Texas. We've also received an email from the committee chair of the Classroom Health and Sex Education, sort of disputing some of the claims in Ms. Delgado's letter. And we've now, I guess right before our meeting, received an email from the SHAC chair kind of weighing in as well. I would like to know in an email to all of us that what information was relayed to the SHAC about the Big Decisions curriculum, what was presented to the public about the status of Big Decisions. I know that there's a video. I have not had a chance to watch it. I was not able to attend the public meeting. If there's a quick couple sentences of what was stated in, or if you just tell us watch the video, I'll just watch the video. That's fine too. And if we plan to respond to the Healthy Futures of Texas letter, and if that's already in the works, you can just tell us that now. But I feel we owe them a response. But I'd like to know. I'm getting several emails from a couple of different sources, and I'd like to have that all summarized in one area.
So So I saw one or two of those emails. One, I think I need to sit down with legal. I know Mr. Jimenez and I met about it briefly today. And then as far as a response, this is kind of a gray area because as you all well know, the SHAC is your committee. It's not my committee, right? So how or who we respond from is kind of up to you all.
Sure, understood.
I mean, if you all want me to respond, absolutely, I can send it to you, and we can, take care of it. But that's not my committee. I'm not running that.
Well,
committee.
let's do this. I would like to for sure get information as to what has been relayed to SHAC about that curriculum, and a summary of what was provided at that public meeting, as far as what was told to the people in attendance.
Well, and I was actually going to reach out to Dr. Micah tomorrow and Mr. Lopez based on the emails that we've gotten.
Okay.
So
I think having a follow-up to all of us would be helpful, so we understand what the.
Yeah, because
where
it sounds like
everything
Mr. Legal told the SHAC facilitator, Mrs. Aguilar, who passed it on to the SHAC actual committee, so just make sure we know what was passed, and then obviously the
Correct.
translation piece that Mr.
Yeah,
Barr
we don't want
responded.
to play phone.
Right.
We want to get to the facts.
Yeah.
Here's the facts as so Joe Friday.
Joe Friday, yes, that'd be great.
There, that just dated me, didn't it?
And the final thing I have to say is I would be remiss if I did not, I know this isn't the proper form, but I'm saying it anyway, that I don't, similar to people that came and spoke to us about throwing allegations at one of our colleagues and them being unfounded, I would appreciate if people in the public didn't accuse us up here, including myself, of being, of grooming students. I think that was highly inappropriate. And I also think keeping our teachers out of that allegation until things run their course would also be appropriate. So I'd give everybody, take pause when you're doing that. We're doing the same thing. And so, thank you. That's it.
Okay. I'm going to adjourn at 9:37.